Hello, beautiful beings. Welcome back to this beautiful collaboration connection. I feel like this is a time where we all need to get together, mind meld, soul meld. And today I've got two incredibly powerful light workers that I'm so excited to have here. We're all going to be talking about and discussing light versus dark energy. We all have different specialties as well. I think this is the most important time right here on the planet to talk about something like light versus dark and what's really going on, and not to be scared of the dark, to really embrace that side of things. So let's just go ahead and get started by introducing ourselves. So Becca, do you want to go ahead and get started with that?
Sure, I'll do the honors. Hey guys, my name is Becca Komar and I am a spiritual business coach. And my journey has been mostly in corporate America, very much in the business side of things. And over the years, I've really been diving deeper into my own spirituality and self-development. And through that, I was, within the last year, able to merge all of it together to support healers, starseeds, light workers in building their business. And doing that from a heart-centered place, knowing there was something big coming, not knowing what that was, but feeling called by my guides and my higher self to help people get their message out. And so I've been supporting tons of women and men online and growing their influence, their following, and their clients. So I'm really passionate about the spiritual side of things because I think it's all connected, not just business. It's not just money. It's not just our personal lives and spirituality. It's all together. So I'm really excited to talk about the light and darkness from different angles, personally and with my clients. And I'm calling in from Ometepe, Nicaragua. I've been traveling, kind of turning into a digital nomad. So if you hear birds and stuff like that, that's what's going on in the background.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you. And Sharma?
Hi. So I'm calling from the UK, and I'm an energy healer and entity removal specialist, I guess. My journey has started in healing, really just in basic energy systems, having come from a corporate world. And yeah, just through trial and error and research and development and a lot of difficult situations, I'm here today. I don't know what else to really say, but yeah, I do what I do, and very much a part of the awakening of getting information out there to all the people. I can see on such a big scale, especially at the moment, what's happening with the coronavirus, with the fear that's being spread right now. So I think it's a really good time for collaborations, for great minds to get together, to help, to heal, and do all that kind of stuff. So yeah, really happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. It's all good.
Awesome. Yeah. And then I guess
I'm
we keep
doing this.
we're moving the energy. It's so awesome.
It's
And then I guess just a brief background on me. I like to call myself a paradigm shifter. I think that's a pretty good way to define myself. I like to receive information from the cosmos through channeling and give it to people and help them have light code activations and really kind of step into their true power. So that kind of looks like me just having clients all over the world and giving out information as much as possible on, social media, just spreading the word like you guys are as well. So let's kind of kick this off. And the first thing that I want to kind of start with, I mean, we all have questions, so we're going to be asking the group. I'll start with one of mine. And I wanted to talk about suffering. I think this is a really important thing. We're talking about light and we're talking about dark. And right now, a lot of people are focusing on that dark. So let's focus on the dark. Let's transmute the dark, and let's help people understand that there's actually a very positive side to things like having an ego death, destroying your current reality and suffering, whether that be at a physical, emotional, or spiritual level. So I want to know from you two, and then I have my 2 cents on it as well. What's your opinion on suffering in general? Like, what's your perspective on suffering from your own kind of perspective?
So from the stuff that I teach and the clearings that I do, suffering to me is largely comes from the perception of the individual. What filter is that particular person looking at life through? So we have all the light workers who, as hard as it is to work against the mass consciousness of fear that's going on right now, but those of us who are in tune know, all right, we've got to stay thinking a bit like this, we've got to stay in tune with that. But for those that are have not yet reached that level, the filter that they're looking at the world through and that perspective, it must be horrendously scary. And that's where I believe suffering comes from. I think in some of your videos, Elizabeth, with no attachments, no expectations. In my studies, it's been expectations and attachments are the cause for all suffering. So if we take that analogy and just put that on this virus, everybody who's suffering and panicking right now, I would imagine is coming from some place of an expectation or an attachment to something. And again, that just, I feel, is the thing that massively traps us into things.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I just want to say just one thing on that is what a great perspective to have. I mean, say, for example, like I had a client the other day and she's like, Elizabeth, you know, since we last spoke, I got into a really massive car accident. And I'm like, oh no, are you okay? And she says, actually, life has never been better. You know, it's forcing me to give love to myself. It's forcing me. I have now all my massages covered. I have physical therapy for injuries that I had in the past. That's being covered. I'm healing my body at a level that I never was able to before. And this is amazing, right? So to the average Joe Blow, getting into a massive car accident would be tons of suffering on all the levels. And for someone who has that elevated perspective, it's like, this is great, you know? And I feel the same way about the virus. It's like, this is amazing. Things are changing. Yeah, there is a lot of suffering out there. Yeah, people are getting sick, but we're changing things. This is massive. And this is a very exciting time. So thank you for that perception on suffering. I love it. Becca?
This topic excites me so much, and there's like so many different ways I want to like take this just within the last 24 hours of talking to people about suffering and the perspective. I think, well, number one, suffering is a perspective. From my perspective, it's an opportunity of transformation knocking at your door. It's your choice to take it or keep suffering more until it gets harder and harder and harder and more dramatic, like a car accident. That initial message might have been a lot more subtle, and then we don't listen, and then it gets louder and louder. And within my trip, it's crazy. Just traveling the last 3 months, I met within a week 2 people that got in terrible motorcycle accidents, and one guy couldn't walk. He was using crutches for 4 years, and he got hit by a semi. Another person also got hit on a motorcycle and was out for 2 years, like couldn't even open his eyes. And it helped them transform and tap into their spirituality. And so I think it's all that perspective on, is it really suffering or is it an opportunity for change? That's really going on individually, but also collectively and on the planet. So we're seeing different levels of that happening here. So whenever people even like lately, I've been hearing people saying, I lost clients. I just had someone say that. I lost clients. Another person said I lost their job. I'm like, awesome, congrats. Like, this is your chance to change what you want to change. So
yeah, amazing. So good. And then I'm going to add another perspective to this. And I just want to say, totally agree with both of those things. So amazing. Now, if we take a look at suffering at a bigger level, I really understand contracts, right? And almost to the point of it being a fault, right? It's like, I have a contract with this glass of water for the next 20 minutes. You know what I mean? Like I look at everything like contracts. I think that's my divine masculine. It's kind of like having a phone contract, right? Everyone we meet, every experience we have, it's a contract in our life. And what people don't really understand about suffering is you signed up for that. You created that. Right? So at a bigger level, we need to realize that it's not your boss who fired you. It's not your husband who cheated on you. It's not the guy who was texting who rear-ended you. It's not their fault. You created that in your reality. And the second that we get out of the victim of life is happening to me, I have no control over this, you know, and we step out of that, we're like, so why did this happen? And if I did create this, then what is that opportunity to change? What is that opportunity to transmute this? And I think if we kind of start looking at things as, I created this, I signed up for this, this is a contract, you know, that I wrote myself, then you can go to those deeper levels and you can start changing that perception of, what am I learning? What am I transmuting? Why am I being challenged in this way? And then all of a sudden, shit's going to always happen to us. There's always going to be this perception of suffering. There's always going to be stuff. There's always going to be challenge, right? Whether you suffer from the challenge or not, doesn't matter, but there's always going to be that challenge. And I think the more that we can look at those challenges in a bigger, broader perspective, and the more that we can take responsibility for those challenges, understanding that we put them on our own path in order to change, the faster we're actually going to transmute them and move them into the light. Really, I think we just kind of covered all the bases. You know, so cool.
And I love it because they all work on top of each other. They all work in alignment with each other. There's a contract, then there's how your perception is right now, because you've forgotten about your contract, and then there's the psychosomatics dependent on what your perception is that are creating, like, so say somebody does get the virus, you know, that's to do with the lungs, then what's the, you know, from the Louise Hay, the biology of belief with Bruce Lipton, you look at that, oh, there's going to be some of that in there as well, and all of those things are all the same, are all relevant. Similarly to you did a video once on free will versus destiny. Which one is it? It's both. It's all of them.
Both. Yeah,
it's all encompassing. So yeah,
totally. Very cool. Awesome. Okay, great. So based on everything that's happening, I'll ask another question, and then you guys can ask some questions as well. Like, what do people need to know right now, right? Based on the suffering, based on the mindset, based on the coronavirus, based on everything that's going on, like, what do you think is, and also, like, you know, encompassing the light and dark, what do you think is really important just in general for people to kind of keep in mind and just know right now at this time when we are being confronted with the heaviest darkness in a way, in a perceivable way? I feel like we're being confronted with the most amount of light, you know, but what do you guys think? What do you guys think people really need to know right now, just from your perspective and what you've been receiving?
Well, I feel, and this is what I'm observing, even being surrounded by 40 plus spiritual people that are dedicating their lives to meditation, yoga, different practices, from medicine to everything, nature, that everything that we have been doing individually on healing ourselves and doing all this work, it's almost like we are going through a beautiful experiment or test. We were in the boot camp, or the, like Matt Kahn calls it, Angels Academy. We're in academy. We were going through training, and now we get to test our skills that we've been training on.
Yes. And
that's kind of like the one perspective I look at as, like, this is a beautiful time for us to really step into our power of everything we've been learning about, especially if you're consuming amazing information from Elizabeth April in her videos. Like, taught me a lot about, you know, just how can we become the best person and understand what's going on. So that's kind of like, I see as like, okay, we're in boot camp and now it's time to shine. Like, let's come together, rise up, and put our armor on.
Yeah.
So there is going to be, the more light, the more darkness is going to come. There's going to be both. And so, like you, Elizabeth, I also focus on, I feel a lot of the light. And when we set our intention and awareness on that, more of that will come. So I've noticed it's easy to play into the reality of my mind of, okay, well, I have all these spiritual practices and I have trust, but then as soon as something faces us, it's like all that goes out the window and we go back to our old habits. But now more than ever, it's, let's truly believe that, have the belief, the power of that belief. And through that, you won't get sick and there will be transformation. So let's see what's possible. Let's play the game. That's the way I look at it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great. So beautifully put.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's cool. Yeah, I think that's brilliant, Becca. Really interesting, just to give you guys a briefing for today. So, you know, the shops are all mad, the people are crazy, everyone's pushing and stealing from each other, and it's just this madness going out. And I had to go out today with my daughter just to pick up a couple of things. So I said, all right, Ellie, let's create a reality whereby we don't like do any of that stuff. So because I study all that kind of quantum stuff, so we first made sure we were aligned. We created little spiritual bubbles for ourselves. I then cleared the whole of my area, made sure everybody was clear. I did a mass balancing for all of the people with permission from their higher selves and for the highest good of all involved before we went out. And I just cleared like a light path between us and to the shop that we were going to, the superstore. There was no traffic, there wasn't too many people, everything we needed was on the shelves, everybody was just calm. I didn't see any of the stuff everybody else has been telling me about. And Ellie was like, you know, she was like, yeah, just because we created it. So my daughter's only 13, but yeah, we just like, see, this is exactly like you said, Becca, training. Let's put the things we studied into practice. I think that's a really good idea. In terms of what do people want to know as well, I was going to just suggest on Prime Video, they've got a documentary called The Healing Field, I think it's called. Yeah, The Healing Field. And I would recommend people that are struggling with this situation or struggling with the panic to watch that and really step into that, to this particular documentary, which does kind of show you, I think Bruce Lipton's on it, where he breaks down like how you can govern your physical healing with your mental state, basically. So and that takes away a lot of the fear. So, and it's really hard when with the consciousness is permeable, so it can permeate our consciousness. It's only so far you can swim against the tide. You've got 20 people around you who are raging. It's going to be really difficult to stay in your center. It's hard to be the eye of the storm. So we need to be watching, or I would advise people to be watching and listening to and studying and relaxing as much as possible, things that put them in a vibration that they feel more comfortable in, rather than keeping the news on and reading the papers and buying into all this fear factors stuff that's going on, which is just a program on its own. So yeah.
Amazing. So good. So good. I want to give another perspective as well, which is it's so interesting. We kind of had the same polarity shift happening with the whole Trump, right? Trump being, you know, in office. So half the population was like, oh my God, this guy's such a buffoon. And then the other half of the population is like, no, he's actually working with, like, you know, the white hats or whatever they call them, the good guys. And he's, you know, and he's one of the good guys and he's really changing things. We have the same perspective. Like, I have a lot of insider information, like people who are kind of like I don't know what you call it, but I get emails from people who are kind of on the inside, and they're telling me that there's these huge bases being taken down, pedophilia rings being, you know, destroyed. There's people who have been, you know, at the upper echelon of the Illuminati that are being, you know, taken down right now. And it's so there's one half of it that's full of light, and then the other half of it, which is all the projection within the media. So it's just interesting how we have these two different kind of sides of things, two very different perspectives. And just kind of what we mentioned at the beginning, which is change your perception of the suffering that's happening. And if we go a little bit deeper, yeah, you can raise your vibration and do certain things to kind of help boost your immune system and what have you. But honestly, I channeled this the other day, which was people who are getting sick. So there's kind of two halves of these people who are getting sick, and they're predicting that 80% of the entire world is going to get sick. So just got to keeping this in mind. One half of the people who are getting sick, or not even a half, but a small percentage, are maybe necessarily not at a high vibrational frequency. So they're not able to hold that 5D vibration for the next, for the evolvement of humanity as a collective, right? And so they're kind of being taken off. They're choosing an exit point. They aren't being forced off. They're choosing to take that exit point because they're no longer able to hold the vibration of the fifth dimension frequency. So those are the people who are passing away, and that's what, like 5% of the people who are getting sick, right? Then you have these other people who are getting sick. And what I channeled the other day, because I was, you know, kind of like, oh my goodness, what if I get sick? You know, you go through the fear, right, yourself.
Yeah.
And my guides were like, but if you were to get sick, that would only be a time to actually go through light code activations, right? And they say the majority of the people who are getting sick are actually going through light code activations at a DNA level. And they told me this years ago. And they told me this years ago that when you get sick, just in general, I asked them, I said, why is a common cold or getting a flu such a symptom of an awakening? Like I asked this years ago, and they told me that, this makes so much sense. They said, in your day-to-day, when you're in your 9 to 5 and you're taking care of your kids and you're doing the things and you're grocery shopping, you're caught up in the money and whatever it may be, when you're caught up in that fight and flight, you're resisting the release and the surrender of the transition and the transmutation. You're resisting. Your ego is so acting in that autopilot that you're not allowing these new paradigms to shift within you. So what happens when you're getting a cold? You let go of everything. You're just laying in bed. You're not doing anything at all. You have no expectations on yourself. You're not attaching. You don't know if you're going to start coughing or you're going to start whatever, and so you allow these new paradigms to really shift within you. And so they told me just the other night, they're like, look, even if you were to get sick, it's only an opportunity to level up, to upgrade your frequency, to upgrade your DNA, to upgrade your biology. And we're helping people who are getting sick upgrade themselves. And this is all a part of the process, which is really incredible. So I don't know if you guys have anything to say on that.
It's so synchronistic with everything I've been talking about with a friend, like on so many levels. I met a beautiful gentleman from France, and we were talking about this, and he was saying how he doesn't want, or he wants to get sick. And even in the past, if someone had a cold, he'd be like, get me sick intentionally, because it's going to impact his DNA and his genes, because it's going to make him stronger. And like you said, you connected that to like the light code activation, kind of synonymous, just put in different perspectives or terms. And that just totally clicked for me. And it's almost like, when we have a fear of something, as soon as we surrender to it, that fear dissipates. And I can almost see it as that, like, oh, I don't want to get sick. And so then sometimes that manifests. But then if we really surrender, like, yes, if I get sick, light code activation's awesome. Let's go do it. Like, we may even get the light code, but we don't even have to get sick. So who knows?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So interesting. And years ago, back in 2011, when I was first introduced to the Galactic Federation, they told me something very interesting. Now, I just want to say that I haven't confirmed this, but the reason why I'm even bringing it up is pretty much a confirmation, but I'm just going to say it and just kind of put it out there to the universe, which is, they told me about this time in history, humanity's history, in my lifetime, in our lifetime, where we were going to go through a period of 3 days and 3 nights of complete blackness, just darkness, just completely, and I didn't really know what they meant by this, right? Eventually, they ended up telling me in 2016 that 3 days and 3 nights of darkness was actually supposed to be this huge electromagnetic kind of intelligent wave hitting the planet and leveling up the planet. And the beautiful thing about this is that all the Illuminati members, or the deep state members, or whatever you want to call them, they all have these underground bases that they hide away from, and essentially they can't hide from this intelligent wave of energy hitting the planet. I mean, it's going to hit and it's going to permeate right through Mother Gaia. And so a couple days ago, I was receiving this message, because in I think it was 2016 or 2017, and I even said this to my people, that we were going to get what was it? They showed me, it was a solar flare. They told me that a solar flare was going to hit the planet in 2021, and it was going to hit the top of Russia, because they showed me on a map, and it was going to they showed me on the planet, and it was basically going to wipe out the entire electrical grid of the planet. And they said, this is when we are going to restructure the financial industry. This is when we're going to restructure government. This is when we're going to restructure everything. And what's been kind of coming to me, once again, I haven't, maybe I should just tap into it. I'm like, I don't know why I'm nervous about tapping into it. It's like, I want to know, but I don't want to know. But it's been coming to me recently that there's a potential where that solar flare no longer needs to hit the planet, because we're going through the restructure right now at this time. Right. And this is kind of like those 3 days and 3 nights of darkness. And what they told me back in 2011, and I said, what do we do? Should we get prepared? This is when I started getting all my survival gear, right? Should we have food? Like, what should we do, right? If everything's just wiped out, like, we can't pay for food at the grocery store. Like, what are we going to do? And they told me, they said, fast and meditate, go within yourself. That is a time to sit back and upgrade your frequency and not freak out. And I feel like that energy, that wave, is kind of hitting the planet right now. And we're all kind of having this fear of, oh no, what's going to happen? But we have to kind of go within and sit within that and raise our frequency. I feel like this is the transition. Let me just go in. Let me just tap in. I know I get kind of nervous about tapping in, but I don't know why. But let me just tap in. Let's see if they can mention anything about the solar flare, or the upgrades, or if this is what they were talking about a long time ago, or if maybe the 3 days and 3 nights of darkness don't need to happen because this is happening. I don't know. Let's just see. I'll go to the Galactic Federation and see what they have to say. 1 second. Okay. Okay. Okay, cool. This is probably why I was feeling a little bit nervous about tapping in. Because when I went in there, and of course, you know, the Galactic Federation is huge, but I like to go to the Palladian Security Council. And they told me, they said, we can't give you any definitive answers right now because it depends on, what did they say? It depends on the depth of change that occurs, right? So if this all happens and we're still so fear-based that we really don't change our systems at all, then guess what? We're going to have to get hit with that wave. We're going to have to get hit with that solar flare. We're still going to have a lot of work to do. And I have known for a while that between 2020 and 2024, major, you know, foundational changes are going to take place at a global level. So in a way, guys, it's so interesting. So they're like, you're definitely onto something. If there is as much collapse as there needs to be, then this is going to be it. This is going to be the biggest change that we're going to see at a vibrational level and at a physical, financial, economic, sociological level as well, government level as well. And so, and that's it. They said everything else is up in the air. It really depends on where this goes and how willing people are to get to those depths of the level, of that level within themselves and within the global structure. So it's so funny. In that way, we should all be quite pumped that it gets even worse, which is so wild to even say, but we should be excited that it gets worse and worse and worse, because the deeper we dive, the lower we go, the higher we're going to climb. And that's basically what they're saying. If we restructure, if we collapse everything, then we don't have to collapse things again at such a global level moving forward. If we kind of half-ass it within ourselves and at a global level, then there's going to be more restructuring that needs to happen. So you guys want to mention anything on that?
Yeah, like that. Yeah, they've got to back up. Oh, good.
Yeah, back up.
Yeah, back up there. Yeah. Oh, excellent. Oh, thank you for doing that. That's brilliant. That's really good to know. Actually, cool.
Yeah.
Oof, there's so many. I've been getting some messages about some type of blackout too. Okay. I got back on the 16th some downloads. I'm looking at my notes, and for me, I thought the blackout was no connection even to internet.
Yep.
And it just connected to me when I was connecting to my galactic family back in like 6 months ago, and you know, I'm still fairly new to connecting to my own family, that when I asked for them to activate my DNA, I had my headphones on, but they weren't turned on or connected to anything or playing music. It was just a way to block out sound. As soon as I asked them to connect, I had this message to my headphones. I've never heard of it before, and I've had my headphones for over 1.5 years, and it said connection canceled, and my headphones shut off instantly. And it was like, vroom.
Wow.
And from there, I was like, there is something there. And I asked my mom, and she was like, oh yeah, they couldn't connect you with all the distractions of the internet. And I was like, okay. So we're home. We're still being distracted a little bit by internet, which I love because that's the power of sharing. We're still adding value, getting information out to people to help them enlighten and change, elevate consciousness. But I'm wondering if that's kind of, you know, a potential possibility in the realm of possibilities.
That is so interesting, because in the past 2 weeks, I've been getting mixed messages, not physically, but metaphysically, about the power being shut off, right? So because I'm a, you know, I don't know, a prepper, you know, I've got solar power things, and I've got, you know, hand radio, and I've got all the things, right? Not that I don't think we would need it, because essentially that time is supposed to be us going within ourselves. So part of me is like, I feel like there's going to be an electrical wipeout. Like, I really feel like there's, you know, it's so interesting that you mentioned that too, Becca, as well. You've kind of been getting that message. And then the other part of me is like, now I also feel like that's not going to happen and we're good. And then I'm like, and logically I'm like, but how, I mean, yeah, it's a virus, but a virus can't freaking wipe out the electrical grid. It can't wipe out, what I mean, the internet. Like that's a virus. And so it's so interesting. Now I'm kind of putting the pieces together. And just as you were talking there, Becca, it kind of felt like, just like what the Galactic Federation said, if we're doing the things, if we're going within ourselves, if we're meditating more, and I just got chills, if we're like loving ourselves more, if we're connecting more at this conscious level, if we're rising above the fear, then we're not going to need the blackout. We're not going to need it. However, if the majority of the planet is still stuck in fear and resisting the transition, we're going to be forced into that blackout zone in order to upgrade. We're going to be forced to get sick in order to upgrade. Upgrade yourself without getting sick, and you don't have to get sick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stop resisting. Anyway. Yeah, so it's about accepting change. That's what it is. It's about accepting change and working with it. And that's the message that's really been coming through time and time again in the past couple of days and couple of weeks, which is we're being forced to drop the 9 to 5. We're being forced to drop our routines. We're being forced to drop the autopilot. What else can you do to fill your time? Everyone's like, I'm bored. And they're just binge watching Netflix. What else can you do instead of binge watching Netflix? Maybe cook a beautiful meal for your family. Maybe like start a garden, do things that feel holistic. One more thing that I've really been getting huge downloads on in the past week or so is 0 point energy and neutrality, right? Yeah. So think about the polarity. We've got light, we've got dark. Are you all love and light? And the other thing too is a lot of spiritual people are kind of spiritual bypassing all of the suffering. They're like, don't worry about that. Everything's meant to be. We're just rainbows and butterflies. It's great. It's like, but you're still kind of missing something here, right? It's got to be both. And so the way that we can actually become a master, right? So true mastery, and I've been channeling this for a year now, true mastery is the light and the dark simultaneously. That is fifth dimension. That's high vibrational frequency, when it's not just one or the other. All light is not mastery. That's actually, spiritual bypassing, right?
Yeah.
So what they've been telling me in the past week or so is the easiest way to get your vibration back into a place of neutrality, back into this 0 point. That's where our mastery is you're in between the polarity, is things that do not incorporate judgment. And I know judgment is a word that everyone has their own perception on, and I'm not using this word in the traditional sense. I'm using this word in, you don't have an opinion on whatever it is that you're interfacing with. So say, for example, I just grew this beautiful little basil tree, basil plant, right, from a seed. And I'm like, if I interface with this basil plant, it's not judging me. It doesn't have an opinion on me or my reality. I don't have an opinion or judgment on it. And nature, and they told me crystals too, but the easiest place to get into neutrality, 0 point, is in nature, and it's so beautiful. I've been interacting with the trees that are just in my little condo complex. Never before I have interacted with them, before this, but it's like, there is chaos, there is fear, there is fights, there is pillaging, there's all this chaos. And yet this tree is still growing. Nothing has ever happened. There's just chaos energy. And yet this basil plant is still just loving the sun and the water. And this is neutrality. We need to get back to nature, because not only are we going to be reconnecting with Mother Gaia and helping her out, and she's, reconnecting her paradigms as well, but that's neutrality. That's 0 point frequency, where we're in between the chaos. We're in between the polarity. So I don't know if you guys have anything you want to mention about that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think I love what you're saying about nature, and it having, not that it doesn't have an opinion, but it doesn't have a judgment. So yeah, the tree doesn't care about the coronavirus. The tree doesn't care about that kind of stuff. The tree will grow regardless and do whatever it's doing and be whatever it's being. So yeah, that neutrality, in my teachings, our 0 point reference was the stuff I sent you the other day was being able to spiritually center yourself from how you perceive the bad things or perceive the good things, and knowing that however good it gets, it has, because of duality, if you're living in duality, it's going to have to get that bad as well, because the pendulum is going to swing at equal measure. So but if you stay at the top of that in neutrality, in that 0 point reference, it's all good, it's all good, baby. You just recognize, all right, I'm over here now, all right, I'm over there now, and then and bring yourself back into your center regardless. So yeah, no, I love that. There's so many different ways to do that. But you spoke the other day to me about something in terms of like being, like just being in nature and spending that kind of time in nature or with trees or with plants and just talking to them, helping to bring you back into the being, back into neutrality. So I think that's a really good thing for people to be able to do as well. A really good advice, that meditation, anything like that. Like, no, meditation doesn't really go into the neutrality, but within your mind, if you're somebody that does connect with your angels and stuff, they don't have judgment. That's another area where you can get into that space. Like, yeah, I love it. I thought that was brilliant.
So good.
Yeah, those are such good points, and it makes me really grateful of where my guides brought me to live in nature. I'm camping. I literally have been living in a tent, guys, in a beautiful community, living off the land, solar, water is straight from the volcano, the river. And I've never felt more alive and connected to Mama Gaia and to community and nature more in my life. And it really does bring me back. It's not even like I have to try anymore, because, you know, when you're living in your house, you're like, I need to go ground right now, right? And you're like, let me just take off my shoes and put my feet on the grass. Where's the grass? I don't know where the grass is. It's raining. I don't want to go outside. Where's my jacket? But it's just like, it could be that easy, connecting with your basil plant. It could be walking out to your condos and hugging your tree, even if your neighbors think you're crazy. Like,
they do.
Yeah.
Doing those little things. Yeah. Another thing I wanted to mention in terms of like the neutrality is to kind of just to share my perspective, hoping that some people can relate. Like, shadow work is new to me. I was the one that was like on my spiritual quest and light and love. Yes, everything's blissful. And I got hit hard with, all right, it's time to go on the opposite now and dive into those dark spaces you've been afraid to see and look at. So I did some really deep shadow work the last couple of months, and I realized and started to embrace it. Like, every time I have one of those difficult times that I know it's going to swing back to the other side of the pendulum, like you're saying, Sharma, you know, the polarity, that it will always go back to ground zero, the neutrality. I was just talking to a gentleman at dinner last night in this community, and he's, you know, he meditates daily, does yoga practice, and he said he was slipping back into depression the last couple of days. And after having such a high and amazing week before, he was just like, why is this happening to me? So he distanced himself for like a couple of days, and I was just talking to him and was like, you know, there's a different perspective to look at it, that when we're going through those deep times, like, it's actually sometimes our ego or even like reptilian trying to attach to us, right? And to test us. Are we going to stay back to where we were before in that shadow, or be able to transmute it and then up level even further and higher than we were able to reach before that? So it's almost like an up leveling that can be perceived as a shadow.
100%.
That darkness. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very cool.
So we have a visitor.
I know, I saw that. So cute. Of course, the cat is just drawn to our energy.
Yeah.
I love having group sessions and having cats like just jump into like other people's screens and stuff. It's so awesome. Do you guys have anything else? Any last words to say before we kind of wrap this up?
With what Becca was just saying, in terms of like being attached with some darker energies and stuff like that, just to go into that a little bit, because of what's happening, the kind of fear that's going over on the planet, and just based off of the work that I do and everything, what I'm seeing within my clients is that even if it's not them specifically, the people around them, their energy fields are opening up, their vibrations are lowering with the fear, and as a result of that, they're getting a lot more attacks, they're getting a lot more attachments, they're getting a lot more stuff on them, and that in turn is then creating stagnation within the mindset, within the ability to go and hug a tree, or
Yeah.
irritation with each other, and people are now locked in houses with each other. If you've got attachments and things going on in there, it's kind of intense. But again, taking it to the different polarities we've been talking about, even when that happens, again, we can see that those triggerings as areas to be able to grow, areas for one, well, I need to raise my vibration, I can do some protection, I can do some this, I can do some empowerment rather even than protection, and I can use this opportunity to recognize I have an issue with this person and we need to sort this out. If you weren't in a closed space with another, or with a family member or a partner, you wouldn't now have that opportunity or that need to do that, because it's either that or we're probably going to pull each other's eyes out or something. But like, you know, like let's try and break an even kill. I think that there's a beauty in that I see.
Mm-hmm.
So and at the same time, it's going to be hard for some people. So, but yeah, what do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, we're being forced to confront our shadow side, and the people who have done the work are kind of, we're having a good time right now. This is great. I'm loving it, whatever. You know, the people who have not done the work, man, are they getting challenged, right? And one other thing that I want to mention is a lot of the fear that's coming up in people, and I've seen this for years with my clients, like, I don't know, like, it's a silly example, but say, for example, you're like really scared of like the color orange or whatever, right? And you're like, I don't know why I'm so scared of the color orange, like blah, blah, blah. And then I look into it, I'm like, oh, well, that comes down to a past lifetime a long time ago where you had a fear because this color, you know, interacted with your life in a very low vibrational way or what have you, and you've been hanging on to that. So I just want to say that the majority of the fear, like probably a good 90%, the media is definitely not helping, and the whole pandemic and definitely not helping, but the majority of the fear that people are feeling right now has nothing to do with the virus. It has nothing to do with the virus. This has everything to do with old, hidden, suppressed, deeply rooted fears from many past lifetimes, and it's all coming up, and it doesn't have to be related. It could be like a fear of sexuality, and all of a sudden, you know, all that fear is coming up with the coronavirus, and you're just purging it out. That's what's happening. If you're scared of something, you're purging out that fear. You're, like Becca said, you know, kind of like equalizing it, or being vulnerable to it, right? Surrendering to it, you know, and you're neutralizing it through that surrender. So I just want to say to people, you know, the fears that you're feeling have nothing to do with the virus. And I'm sure a little bit of it is the media and stuff, but essentially it has to do with this deep rooted stuff that you haven't dealt with, and be thankful that you're actually dealing with all of it at this time. This is an incredible time, and you know, and we're being given a gift right now at a global level and at an individual level. So how are you going to choose to work with that gift, right?
Yeah, and I'll add to that. It's a beautiful point that reminded me. So if you are like, you know, you're listening to this and you're like, oh great, you guys are all like enjoying and having a party while I'm feeling like I'm in it right now and I'm stuck, this sucks. I want to remind you of something that really helped me. I recently did ayahuasca ceremonies. I've never done any plant medicine, any psychedelics before. And so I had a lot of fear going into it. And the funny thing was, the biggest fear I had was purging in front of people. I was afraid to puke in a bucket. And it took me a couple times to really surrender to this beautiful opportunity to heal dark shadows. And someone flipped the program for me and was like, every time I grab that bucket and purge, I am like, thank you. Let me just get all of this out on the table. And it's just so beautiful, so much release. Thank you for purging. And I invite you guys to think that way. If you ever feel like icky, like bring it on. Like if it is vomiting, if it is the physical, if it is the spiritual, like you feel an entity on you, like just release it all and be like really grateful, like no shame or guilt.
No, I love that. It's a beautiful perspective. Sorry, Elizabeth, are you going to say?
No, go for it.
So I absolutely love that perspective. I was sorry, cat's completely taken my mind. So in terms of just that whole balance of everything, we could also look at what the media is doing, how we're choosing to do anything. We can embrace it. We could, like, a lot of people are like, even people that are awake, look what the media is doing. They're projecting all this fear into us. They're storing all these things. How beautiful is it that they're doing that to push us so far that we are that fear-based, that we don't have a choice but to purge in our own homes without anybody looking. So so like we could choose to have that perspective, or we could choose to say, you know what, it's terrible what they're doing, and fight against it. Which again, if you look at the scale of consciousness, Mac is kind of more fear-based and lower down there. Or we could be in acceptance of it and say, cool. I love what Phil said recently, the universe is always bending in my favor. So yeah, let the media and what's happening in the media bend in my favor. Let the soldiers that are walking down the street, let this situation bend in my favor. You know, they need healing too. They're stressed out probably as well. Who knows what they're going through in the midst of this? Like, you know, we can just choose a neutral perspective for everything and recognize there's two sides to all of this. Where am I going to stand? Where do I want to be in the face of that?
I love that. And I'd love to think if it is possible on the spot. One thing, if we want to bring up just one action items I love to take away, what can we do after listening to this, and, you know, any podcast, book you read, how can we implement it and test it? And what's one thing you guys want to recommend to someone so that way they can, something they can take away from this call, any action item that may be?
Cool.
Go hug a tree. I mean, go into nature, like get back to source, get back to self, get back to, you know, that neutral perspective, right? Stop watching the news. Take a day to just completely, you know, remove yourself from the media and see how your vibration shifts. I promise you it will. And spend time with the plants and the animals in your home, and spend time, you know, being creative and sketching and doing things that you've never done before. Like, this is your time. This is your being called. So that's what I would recommend.
I love that. Yeah. And I would say as well, for those who are afraid to go outside now because it's breathable and whatnot, then sit at home, sit down, meditate, open your crown, pull source light through your whole body, feel it coming through slowly, see how that makes you feel, see how that's different while the TV is off, while the Wi-Fi is off. Feel the change in yourself cellularly. Feel yourself grow like that, and ground that light energy right through you. Bring it back up. Keep it in each chakra point. Put it in your heart if you're feeling fearful. Put it in your brain if you're feeling fearful. Spread that all over you, and just really, because it's nothing else you can do right now, take a minute to really feel what that feels like. People say it all the time. You think, yeah, that sounds good, that sounds good. Very rarely do we feel we have the time to actually try it. Now you don't have a blinking choice. So try it. It can only not work. That's it. You know, and then where are you?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, good.
Great tips.
Awesome.
For me, I would say, even though this is like so contradictory to being an online coach, but the more that I've been tapping into this, the better and higher vibration I feel, is disconnecting from like my phone completely, turning it off for like entire day, not even just like a couple hours, but a full day or a couple of days. And so much opens up from that, which then leads to going out to nature, connecting, meditating, bringing the energy through, doing some yoga, movement. Yeah, and trying things you haven't tried before.
Yeah, I love the yoga. We've been, my daughter and I have been doing that since we've been in, and that's been really helpful as well. It's like, whereas before I was always a little bit too busy, or all right, let's just go and do this, or let's just wash the dishes, or but now we're just going to get out, we're doing it because we've let go of school, we've let go of everything, you know, I'm homeschooling, so like that doesn't come into it now because we're just taking time out. Now we can just do our yoga practices, which we've been trying to find time to do before. It's lovely. So yeah.
So nice. And then do you guys want to just all say where people can find you?
Okay. So I'm at Sharma Pillay. I can't remember. SharmaPillay.com on the website. That's my website. And and I'm on Instagram at Sharma_Pillay. So yeah. Feel free.
And just spell your last name for people too.
Pillay. And find me there. Find me through Elizabeth. Find me through Becca, I guess. And it's all good. So and it's been lovely collaborating with you two today. It's been excellent.
Yeah, for sure. Becca?
And shout out to Sharma. Like, seriously, guys, if you haven't had a session from her, I highly recommend that. Like, even if you've had healing sessions before, like, there is nothing like what Sharma does. And I tell everyone, like my clients, my friends, thanks to Elizabeth, just made a shout out on YouTube. And I was like, all right, let's do this. So yeah, like that, to like, if you do all this work, and I'll go into, sorry, I'm like totally distracted, but like the way I looked at it with working with Sharma is like, you can do all this work and healing, but then if you still have things attached to you, it may not be as effective. So it's nice to kind of have that clean slate and then do all of this integration and work while you have the time.
Yeah.
So shout out to Sharma for helping me with that. And then for me, I'm mostly on Instagram. That's kind of my main home. And my name is spelled BEKAHKOMAR, Becca Komar, on Instagram, sometimes on Facebook, but you can DM me, reach out with any questions whatsoever. And I'm happy to help you guys out.
Awesome. Yeah. And then just, you can Google Elizabeth April and you'll find all my things. That's what I like to say. Awesome, guys. This was amazing. This is, I knew this needed to happen. What incredible information. We're all on the same page, different perspectives. I really hope people got a lot out of this, and I'm sure they did. So we'll have to do this again and find another topic and just kind of keep collaborating, because this is the time where these star families on this planet, off this planet, are being called to collaborate. So it was such a pleasure to kind of come into both of your fields today and have this beautiful collaboration. So until next time, thank you everyone so much for watching, and we'll be back again. Bye.
Bye.